Story time about a pick-me girl who literally tried to ruin someone's life because she was jealous of her. This girl, Lena, emailed me and she was like, I love your roommate stories. I have one for you, but it actually wasn't my roommate. It was his girlfriend. Lena was renting 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom apartment with a guy named Ryan. And before Lena moved in, Ryan was actually her older brother's roommate. But her older brother needed to move out of the city, like move somewhere else, and she needed a place. So she just moved in because she knew Ryan through her brother. They got along really well, but it was always platonic. Lena actually had a boyfriend, but they would like cook food together, watch movies together, just hang out together, just normal roommate stuff. Ryan starts bringing this girl named Tara around. At first, Tara's normal. She's hanging out, like they're all at the apartment with Lena, Lena's boyfriend, Ryan, and then her. She said the only semi-obnoxious thing about Tara was that she was very clearly, from the start, a pick-me girl. Like, Lena would tell a story, and then Tara would have to one-up her. She was a one-upper. For example, Lena was talking about one instance where like she was trying to switch all the household products to non-toxic products. So she switched like Miss Myers from whatever they were using, Dove or whatever. And then Tara was like, well, actually you should use Aesop because Aesop is the best non-toxic brand. Or like they would all be going out on a weekend and Lena would do her makeup and feel really good about herself, and then she would come out in the kitchen and Tara would like fix her makeup or just be like, you shouldn't do your makeup like that, like it doesn't compliment your face. She would always say this stuff in front of the guys. Lena tolerated it because it's her roommate's girlfriend. She's trying to keep the peace. They all get along other than that. A couple months go by. Ryan and Tara are getting more serious. Lena sees more of her around the apartment. One morning she wakes up and they're already gone for the day, but she notices like all of her coffee mugs. She said she had like a few that she always used and they were all broken in the kitchen sink. So she's like, what is this? So she texts Ryan. She's like, hey, did you break my coffee mugs? And he just texts her back like a question mark. So she lets it go. And then later on when they get back, she brings it up again. And Tara's like, oh yeah, I broke them this morning when I was like washing the dishes. So Lena's like, that's annoying, whatever. But she lets it go. She thinks it's an accident. Sometime after that, there's one night, Lena gets home from work. She gets back to the apartment. She has a bunch of packages that she brings up. She said she ordered a bunch of like high-end activewear. She takes the tags off. She throws it in the wash. She starts making dinner. She's vibing, listening to music, having a good time. And she hears like the water running in the bathroom. So she's like, that's weird. Ryan's normally not home. So she goes out in the living room and she sees Tara coming out of the bathroom. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you were here. And Tara's like, yeah, like I'm just, Ryan, you know, gave me a key. Like I'm just waiting for him. So Lena's like a little bit annoyed because she knew Tara pretty well at this point. Like it had been a few months since they started dating, but she also didn't appreciate Ryan not letting her know that Tara was going to be at the house without him. She makes a mental note to talk to him about that. And then she tells Lena, like, I didn't know you were here. Like, I'll make you dinner too. She throws her new clothes in the dryer and she takes her dog out for a short walk while dinner's cooking. She gets back, Ryan gets home, they all eat together, and then she goes to bed. She forgets about the clothes in the dryer. She wakes up in the morning, she's gonna go to the gym. She goes to the dryer to get her clothes and they're not there. Ryan's bedroom is still closed, so he's asleep. So she doesn't want to wake him up. So she's just like, he must have grabbed my stuff on accident and put it in his hamper. So she like goes to the gym and like leaves it alone. When she gets back, he's not in the apartment. So she texts him. She's like, hey, did you see my clothes? And he's like, no. She's like, okay, men are effing dumb. So she goes in his room, looks through his hamper. Her clothes are not there. She's like pretty annoyed at this point. So she texts Ryan again. She's like, hey, can you give me Tara's number? I think she might have grabbed my clothes. Like, did she do laundry at the house last night? And he's like, I don't think so. No, but he gives her Tara's number. So Lena texts Tara. She's like, hey, it's Lena. Did you by chance grab my clothes out of the dryer last night? Tara texts back. And Lena actually included the screenshots of these texts from Tara, but the text from Tara said, why would I touch your disgusting gym clothes? So Lena thinks, okay, rude. And then she texts Tara back and she's like, if you didn't touch them, how did you know they were gym clothes? So Tara's like dismissive. She responds basically telling Lena that she thinks that she has ADHD and she should go talk to a medical professional. She's like, you're really unorganized. Like maybe if you just had your life together a little bit more, you would know where your stuff went. And then she was like, don't accuse me. And then she didn't come over to the apartment for a few weeks. So Lena's obviously really annoyed, really PO'd. And so when Ryan gets home and she gets him alone, she's like, hey, I think we should talk about Tara coming over to the apartment. Like she was really rude to me in text today. Shows him the text. He's like, oh my God, like that doesn't seem like her at all. And Lena's just like, yeah, like I would just appreciate it if she's here, she's with you. Ryan's like very understanding. He's like, of course, like I'll talk to her. Lena's like, cool, problem solved. Of course it's not. Of course it's not. One night, Ryan's over at Tara's house. So Lena's home alone. She gets a text from Tara. And the text says, if you want to talk bad about me, you can do it to my face. You don't have to go behind my back and talk to, in capitals, my boyfriend. So Lena's like, okay, she's clearly mad at me because I was mad at her for stealing my clothes. So she just is like, I'm not even going to engage. I'm not responding to her. When Ryan's home, she shows him the text. She's like, what is this? And he's just like, I don't want to get involved. You're my roommate. She's my girlfriend. I don't have any issues with either of you independent of each other. So just like, keep me out of it. Lena's just like, okay, well, Tara makes me uncomfortable. Like, I don't want her over here. And he gets a little bit mad. He's like, we pay the same rent. Like, you can't tell me that I can't have my girlfriend over here if I want to. If I'm here with her, I don't see the issue. Lena starts spending more time at her boyfriend's place so that she doesn't have to encounter Tara. And the stress of the situation is like really taking its toll on Lena. She's like showering. She notices clumps of her hair coming out. She has like a persistent stomach issue, just not feeling herself. Things are a little bit tense, and she notices Ryan starts like pulling away from her. Like they don't ever hang out anymore. He's always at Tara's house, or like she's always at her boyfriend's, but they never do anything as roommates anymore. One day, Ryan tells her that Tara's going out of town to visit her family. So she's like, this is a perfect opportunity for like us to bond. Like, why don't we just like go grab some food, grab some drinks, and then we'll just like come home and hang out. And he's like, cool. She texts him that day when she's at work. She's like, hey, are we still on for tonight? He's like, yeah. So she gets home before him. She's getting ready to go out, and she gets a text from Ryan, who's still at work. And he's like, I don't think we should hang out anymore tonight. And she's just like, okay, why? He was like, we need to talk about the message you sent me. So she calls him because she doesn't know what he's talking about. And he ignores her call, and he just texts her back, and he's like, we'll talk later. She makes other plans with other friends, goes out, comes home, Ryan's there. She's like, what were you talking about earlier? And he's just like, we need to talk about the message that you sent me. Like, I don't think it's appropriate if we live together when you feel the way that you do. And she's like, what are you talking about? And so he pulls out his phone. He shows her a message that was sent from her Insta account. And it was in response to one of his stories. It was like a gym selfie. And the message from Lena's account says, come home so I can get those clothes off you. So she's like, what the, like, I didn't send that. And Ryan's just like, come on, Lena, like, we're both adults. Like, if you feel that way, like, you can tell me, but it's still not appropriate. She's like, I have a boyfriend. Like, why would I send that to you? And he was just like, I don't know. Like, he's like, Tara has told me that she thinks that you're in love with me. He's like, I did my best to ignore it until you sent me that message. And like, now it's just like too uncomfortable. She's like, I didn't send that. And he's like, it's literally from your account. Like, yes, you did. So she's annoyed. She goes to her boyfriend's house that night. She gets over there. She tells her boyfriend everything that's going on. And he's like weirded out by it. He's like, why would you send him that message? She's like, I didn't send him that message. He's like, I didn't want to bring this up because I didn't think there was anything to it. But now after seeing this message, like a few weeks ago, Tara pulled me aside when we were all out at the bar, and she told me that she thinks that you and Ryan are sleeping together. So that night she sends Ryan this like long, heartfelt text message. She's like, I just want you to know this has always been platonic for me. I don't have any feelings for you. I don't know what happened with my account, but that was not me. Like, please, can we talk about this? Like, we've had a good roommate situation, whatever. He responds, he's really nice. He's like, yeah, I've enjoyed living with you too. Like, I didn't think so. Like, we'll figure this out. She feels better. She goes to sleep. The next night she gets back to her apartment, and she always like lets her dog out. Ryan takes care of her dog when she's not there, but she can't find her dog. She texts Ryan. She's frantic. She's like, hey, have you seen Ollie? He texts back immediately. He's like, no, I thought you brought him to Steve's house with you. She's freaking out. She's going to all the apartments next door on her floor trying to figure out where her dog went. She finally texts Tara, and she's like, do you have my dog? Tara has her read receipts on. She opens the text, reads it, leaves her on read. She's blowing up Ryan's phone. She's like, I need Tara's address. Like, she has my dog. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, just give me her address. Like, I need to go over there. I need to get my dog. He's like, I'm going over there later. I promise you she does not have your dog. But then later that night, she still can't find him. And Ryan texts her as he's at Tara's house, and he says, Ollie's here. He's safe. She starts blowing up his phone again. Tara answers his phone. She's like, hey, she's like, stop calling my boyfriend. Like, I already know that you're in love with him. She's like, also, you're a terrible dog owner. Like, Ryan's always taking care of him, so he's better off at my house anyway. There's a whole back and forth, but ultimately Tara has convinced Ryan that Lena said that she could have the dog. And he takes Tara's side. He's like, honestly, I am really always taking care of him. Like, maybe he is really better over here. You're always at Steve's house. Lena gets her boyfriend involved. He's calling them. Ultimately, they get the dog back only when she threatens to go to the police. Obviously, this does it. Her and Ryan decide that they're not going to live together anymore. They pay a bunch of money and break the lease. Lena moves out. She gets her own place. And she said that the weirdest thing is that after she moved into her own place, her hair stopped falling out and she started feeling better. And now she wonders if she was actually putting Nair or something in her food and drinks. Lena's email was also very long, and she actually said that Ryan and Tara ended up breaking up, and now Tara is dating Steve, the guy that she was dating through this whole story. Lena said I could use her real name, and she said that Tara's name is also real because F her, she doesn't care. She ended her email by saying, be wary of pick-me girls, and if they seem awful, they probably are. What do you think? Was Tara actually a pick-me girl, or was Lena really secretly in love with Ryan the whole time?
Am I the asshole for refusing to help my sister pay for her kids' medical bills because of what happened when I needed help? This is messy as hell, but I need to get it out of my head. My sister 28 female and I 26 female aren't super close, and honestly, we never have been. She's one of those people who have always had their life together. Good job, nice house, all of that. Me, not so much. I've had my ups and downs, and a couple of years ago, it got really bad. So 2 years ago, I lost my job, like completely out of the blue. I was obviously screwed. I had no savings because, life is expensive. I was living paycheck to paycheck like everyone else that I know. My rent was due and I literally had no idea how I was going to pay it. I was freaking out, like I couldn't sleep, cried all night. My stomach was in knots level of freaking out. I swallowed my pride, which was already in the toilet at this point, and I called my sister. I asked her if she could lend me $1,000 to cover rent. Not give me, lend me. I promised that I would pay her back as soon as I got a new job. I wasn't asking for a handout. I just needed some help. She didn't even hesitate. She said no, straight up, flat out, cold, no. Then she gave me this whole speech about how she doesn't believe in lending money to family because it always goes wrong and it ruins relationships. You mean like the great relationship that you have now? I get it. She said that it wasn't personal, but just her policy, then basically hung up on me while I was sobbing. I was devastated. I get it. No one's obligated to help me, but I'm her sister. I wasn't asking for anything crazy. I just needed help to not end up homeless. Anyways, I figured it out. I sold some shit, borrowed from a couple of friends, and barely scraped by. But that moment has really stuck with me. It changed the way that I see my sister. She made it very clear that I couldn't rely on her when things got tough. I never said anything to her about it after that because what was the point? But I never forgot. Now fast forward to last week. Her husband got laid off a couple of months ago, and I guess they've been struggling. But I didn't know the details because we don't really talk. Then out of nowhere, she calls me. She never calls me, so I immediately knew that something was up. She was crying, like full-on sobbing, and told me they needed $1,500 for my niece's medical bills. It's something about a treatment that she needs, and apparently insurance will reimburse them, but they have to pay for it up front. She said they're completely out of options and begged me to help. And look, I love my niece. She's 3, she's adorable, and obviously she's done nothing wrong. But I couldn't help but think about that phone call 2 years ago when I was desperate and she couldn't have cared less. Sorry, unfortunately, I make it a habit to not lend out money to family because it never goes right and it ruins relationships. I know things are hard for you right now, but I got faith in you. You'll make it work out. That is the only thing you need to be telling her. That is the way you need to respond to her. I don't give a fuck how anybody feels about it. Oh, but that's your niece. And I am her sister. I am her fucking sister. That is the only way I would have responded to her. I told her, sorry, I can't help you. And yeah, I might have been a little petty because I threw her words back at her. I said, I don't believe in lending money to family because it always goes wrong. She lost her shit. She started screaming at me about how this is different because it's her child and not just stupid rent. Her words. And how I'm a selfish bitch for holding a grudge over something that happened forever ago. She accused me of punishing an innocent child just to get back at her, which, okay, maybe that's a little true, but it's not. It's not. You not giving up your money does not mean that you're punishing the child. You are not obligated to give your money to anybody. To anybody, just like you borrowed from friends, you sold some things, you did what you needed to do to get by, they can do the same thing. They can do the same fucking thing. They can do what they need to do to pay for whatever the treatment is until they get reimbursed, if they're actually going to get reimbursed. They can do whatever the fuck it is. They need to pawn some shit until they get their money back. You are not obligated to give up your money, and not doing so does not mean that you're punishing the child. That's not your child. That's not your responsibility. No, that is wrong. I don't agree with that. Maybe that's a little true, but also, where was this family helps family feeling when I was begging her to not let me lose my apartment? And here's the thing, I can afford to help her. I've worked my ass off these past 2 years to get my shit together. For the first time in forever, I actually do have some savings. But why the hell should I? She made it clear that we're not that kind of family. She set the rules, not me. And now that the shoe's on the other foot, I'm just supposed to forget everything and bail her out? I can't. Of course, she immediately ran to my parents, and now they're all over me too. My mom keeps saying it's not about her, it's about your niece, and that I'm being heartless. What I'm hearing is that your parents are 100% willing to pay this $1,500 then. Because where the fuck were they when you only needed $1,000? Where the fuck were they? Did they go to bat for you this hard when you needed $1,000 to not end up sleeping on the fucking street? Oh, okay. Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that they don't have a problem with paying for it and getting reimbursed when the insurance comes in. Well, there you go. There you go. We've got it all figured out now then, right? My mom said that I'm being heartless, and my dad told me that I'm acting cold and vindictive. They're both making me feel like absolute garbage. And honestly, maybe they're right. It's not my niece's fault. Her parents are struggling, but it's not my fault either. And honestly, if I cave now, I know my sister's just going to think she can treat me however she wants, and I'll still come running to her when she needs me. So yeah, I feel like shit, but also I feel like she kind of had this coming. Am I being a total asshole here, or is it fair for me to not help her out? I can't tell if I'm justified or if I'm just being petty. You're absolutely not the asshole because like you said, where was all of this energy when you were the one that needed help? Where was this family helps family when you needed help? You needed $1,000 and you asked your sister to lend it to you. until you got a job and you would pay it back. She flat out told you no and then just got off the phone with you and let you struggle, cry, and stress the fuck out by yourself. But now that her child is sick, her child needs something, she's the one that needs the money. You're vindictive, you're a bitter bitch, you're all these terrible fucking things because you are exercising the same right to say no that she did. If your parents feel so fucking strongly about it, they need to pay for this procedure and get their money back when the insurance kicks in. This has nothing to do with you. This is not your responsibility. You choosing to return the exact same favors that people bestowed on you does not make you a bad person. Doesn't make you petty. I understand because it's your niece, it's your child. Everybody makes it a difficult situation, but it's not. It's not. Not to me, at least. No, it's not. If I come to you asking you for help, I am desperate. I am begging. I am pleading. And you tell me no, do not ever, ever think you can come to me and ask me for anything. I don't have no sugar. I can't give you a ride, no fucking where. And no, there is no space for you to stay at my home if you need to. Absolutely not. People need to understand that. Just like when you don't want to help, nobody's obligated to fucking help you. Not at all. I wouldn't be helping my sister out at all. If there's another way that you can help, then I would do that. But I would definitely not be helping out, not monetarily, because it always ruins relationships and things never go right when you do so.
My 28 female boyfriend, 30 male, erased the whiteboard I had my novel timeline on. 3 years. I've been working on my novel for about a year. I write every day, even just a sentence. 6 months ago, my college switched to smartboards and put all of their whiteboards in the garbage. I grabbed 2 because I have a huge wall space open in my living room. Most of my writing is done on my Google Drive, but I have things like character personalities, names, places, a general timeline, etc. You know, stuff I want to remember. I used to take photos of it, so I had my ideas with me. I used to write on my lunch break. I stopped doing that because I burned myself out and my writing quality takes a huge dive. Plus, my boyfriend helps me write and it helps us connect in such a deep way. So I haven't taken a photo in about 3 months. The whiteboards are nice because I can read my notes across the room while I'm sitting in my favorite chair. I got home last night and all of my stuff was erased. It was all train of thought, like I'd come home and jot something down. Handwriting is way more cathartic for me. I had sketches of things in the novel. I'd basically have to go through and remember every single thing on it. I have a lot of it stored in my head or on my Google Drive, but there are some things I'll never get back. But it's the fact he erased it. We don't live together. He told me I've been focusing too much on it and I have no time for him. We hang out at my house 5-6 nights a week. I write while he plays video games. It's a good dynamic, and I thought we enjoyed it. We are always laughing and he helps me with my wording and I Google stuff to help him in his game. This is the first time he's mentioned it bothering him. If he had brought it up, we could have just talked about it. But he went nuclear, and I have no idea why. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. We have had one serious argument over his driving. He got better. My family took him on vacation a few weeks ago. We watch his nephew all the time. His family paid for my entire spring semester. We are so much a part of each other's lives, and I feel so hurt and heartbroken. He's my muse. And just the other day, we went to the jewelry store to look at rings. My feelings rotate between rage, sadness, confusion, sorrow, anger, everything. How do I even approach this? Last night, I was so upset, I asked him to leave. He hasn't texted. He hasn't called. He hasn't stopped by. I keep typing in questions to ask, but I keep erasing them. Quote, why did you do it? Quote, are you unhappy with our relationship? Quote, what did I do? I'm even more heartbroken due to the fact he hasn't called or texted all day. I'm afraid to call him. I don't want to hear him say he thinks we should break up, or he doesn't want to be with me when I'm writing, or just ignore my call.
I don't understand why people deliberately attack their partner. Why are you trying to tear the person down?
Because you hate them.
You should be the one literally physically under them, pushing them up, lifting them up as high as you can. Why are we attacking them?
Well, we have an update. It's been about 3 months since I made my post. This somehow seems like it got really long. The night I made my post, I went to a friend's house and she ordered a pizza. We got ice cream and a bottle of wine. She's a straight shooter, takes a neutral approach, and gives solid relationship advice, so I felt comfortable talking to her about everything. She couldn't figure out why he'd done it. We went over how he and I hung out, how much he seemed to care about me, how we looked into each other's eyes, but it also revealed a lot of hesitation on my part. I'm a positive person, and I tend to forgive faults or overlook them. I suspect it's some sort of coping method from my childhood. We had some unresolved issues I think he was holding in, but when I would bring them up, he'd just kind of get salty and go, it's fine, I don't care anymore. But then he would bring them up in arguments. I didn't realize how toxic it was. That same night, I told him I was coming over the next day to talk about things. I told him I'd be over around 11, and the only thing he texted me was, okay, which I didn't respond to. I went over to his house at 11, and he was still asleep. He got upset when I woke him up. It took the wind out of my sails. On a good day, I cry if something upsets me, but I was so angry and heartbroken, I couldn't even think. I left without saying a word to him. He didn't follow me. On my way out, I went to the kitchen and took my house key from his key ring. I drove home in a daze, collected all of his things, put them in a box on my porch, and texted him to come get them. He said, quote, "What the hell? That's fine. I'll come by later and pick them up." I went out with a few girlfriends, we got day drunk, and had some amazing food. It made me feel better. When I got home and his things were gone, I was heartbroken. I never texted him. He never texted me. I got absolutely no closure, and even though people say closure is bullshit, I've had the hardest time moving on. It's been 3 months, and I still cry in the shower sometimes. Even though I broke up with him, I still feel so confused and heartbroken. I never figured out why he did what he did. I likely never will, and I miss his help and companionship. I'd love to come here and say I finished my book, but I haven't written much since. I can't get into my characters' heads anymore. There's a feeling of loneliness and grief that's sort of helped me create a better outline, but I can't write about my characters. The other day, I went to the bookstore to study. I ended up looking at books related to time travel and found one that has thousands of positive reviews. My novel is science fiction, and I've been trying to think of how to incorporate time travel, so it kind of lined up perfectly. It turns out a lot of my ideas mirror theoretical physics. It's eerie. I've never taken physics or read about it. Suddenly, string theory makes sense. Cosmology makes sense. I'm blown away, and it makes me feel so weird that so much of my plot has been studied so in depth. The book has lit a fire under me. Reading more about everything makes me so excited, and it helped me really flesh out my plot. I can't put it down, and I've read 20 or so pages a night. I haven't actually made time to sit and read a book for years. I always have a notebook with me, so now I write my ideas down. I haven't written about my characters yet, but my passion is coming back. My plot is making more sense. Now, I don't care much about how we broke up. I'm not confused. I sometimes get sad at night or during the day if I go out and make prolonged eye contact with a guy. I haven't thought about dating, and I'm still too hurt to pursue it. But every day, I move on a little bit more. I wanted to thank everyone who gave me advice. I forgot about my post until now, and when I went back through and read it, it made me realize how seriously messed up it was, and it gave me closure. Thank you.
I don't care if I'm the a-hole or not. This isn't that post. Okay, go off, queen. We love a self-aware queen. Remember, we can be a-holes. Sometimes we need to be the a-hole in someone else's story. My 27 female and my husband, 32 male, we'll call him Matt, had a great relationship when we were dating. It wasn't until I met his parents, specifically mother, that I had a small idea of what I was getting into. When we would see his mom, she would make little comments about what I was wearing. That just doesn't look quite right on you, dear. Or have you tried to find that in a bigger size? Although before we could leave the house, Matt always said I looked great. He used to still reply to her that it wasn't his favorite look on me either.
Yeah, I don't like that. She doesn't look very good, does she? Yeah, I love you, Mom.
Lots of red flags that I ignored, believing they were no big deal. Fast forward to after our wedding. We had bought a beautiful house. I have an amazing job that I love, and the bonus to it is I was pulling 6 figures with it. Ooh, love that for you. Yes, successful queen. The house was bought under my name because his credit was horrible. He didn't like that, did he? The little negging that's going on, trying to knock you down a peg a bit. I see what's going on here. Matt was working as well, but wasn't making half of what I was bringing home. But it never bothered me. Well, it doesn't bother you. They don't like it, though. Kind of hurts their ego a bit. I don't think his parents knew where our money was coming from, though. All they saw was our gorgeous home and assumed he was the main breadwinner. That's interesting that his mom was so willing to, like, criticize you and, like, also didn't know that you were the main breadwinner. I don't know if she would have been so quick to criticize if she knew the full story. I kept hearing little comments when I was supposed to be busy doing other things from his mother to him about how I was a gold digger and didn't deserve him. I never mentioned it, thinking, first of all, I wasn't supposed to overhear it, and second, I'm sure he'd set the record straight. Why would he do that? He's hearing all the right things from his mommy he never heard. She's so proud of him and his beautiful house. He should get a prettier wife. A year into our marriage, Matt's mom, who had been visiting our home quite often by this point for weeks at a time, brought up moving in with us. Maybe if you were like nice. We had an ADU, aka granny flat unit behind the house, and I knew they were struggling with their house payment, so I agreed to it until they could find somewhere else they could afford. Yeah, something tells me they're not gonna leave. Yeah, they're gonna stay there with you forever. Shortly after they moved in, Matt and I set up a vacation to Maui and asked if his parents could come with us. I wasn't keen on the idea, but he assured me that they wouldn't be staying with us and would do their own thing. Then he told me that we would be paying for it. So in other words, you would be paying for it. Just a family of freeloaders, eh? I reluctantly agreed, telling him that I wasn't going to pay for their food or extra spending, and he agreed. When the day came for us to leave, I woke up late. My alarm clock had been turned off, even though I was sure I had set it. Nobody was home. The plane was boarding at the same time I woke up. What? I frantically tried calling all three of them, and each of their phones kept going to voicemail. I had an awful feeling, think Home Alone, and decided to check our Ring camera. What I saw absolutely took my breath away. Oh God, I kind of wish I had a drink right now. All three of them were walking out the door, suitcases in hand, laughing and joking about what a great vacation they were going to have without you. Oh, I can't believe the next sentence I just read. Also, Matt's mom even mentioned that she couldn't wait for him to meet another girl that was going. I called my travel agent and found out that they had switched my name on the ticket without my knowledge. In her defense, she didn't know it wasn't me changing the name. And yes, I was charged for that too. Oh my goodness. Ooh, you should never where you eat, what I always like to say. I wasn't as surprised as I expected I should have been. I was more just ready to take action. You moved in the shadows, Dr. Evil. As stated at the beginning of this, the house was in my name and mine alone. I love that you never put his name on the house. You hold all the cards. I immediately contacted my realtor and explained the situation. We immediately got to work. Gotta change those locks. Put all the stuff outside on the lawn. 2 days later, I get a phone call from him profusely apologizing to me, saying there was a mix-up somewhere along the lines and they thought I was meeting them at the airport. By the time they realized I wasn't there, it was too late to turn back. Oops. You actually think that she would believe that? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You all lived in the same house and you didn't think to wake her up before you all left for the airport together? No one would believe that. Not to mention, she's got you all on camera kikiing about how much fun you're gonna have without her. Matt also told me he's sure I've realized by now that he had my credit card to put gas in the car on the way to the airport, and charges were no longer going through. Oopsie. That's the only reason he called you, bestie. It's because you're his meal ticket. Or you were his meal ticket. I told him I had no idea what was wrong with my credit card, even though I called and reported it missing, so of course they turned it off. I hung up with him after wishing him and his parents an amazing vacation. I knew he wasn't going to realize that I also contacted my travel agent and canceled the return flights until they got to the airport. How are they going to get home? 2 weeks later, I was at home and I received a call from him in hysterics asking why their flight has been canceled. I told him there must have been some sort of mix-up somewhere along the lines and wasn't sure. I figured since I wasn't there, they could pay for their own way home. He did end up transferring money from our joint savings to cover it, but whatever. The next morning, he called me again, freaking out, asking why they were locked out of the house and wanted to know where I was. I don't know. There must have been some sort of mix-up. I didn't answer his first question, but I told him I was at home. He seemed to momentarily relax and asked me to open the door for him. After going to my front door and not seeing anybody outside, I told him that I think he had the wrong house and hung up. My phone was being blown up by all three of them, mostly him and his mom. I sent them all clips from the Ring camera, which I had saved and sent to my attorney, and the address to the storage unit where I had their belongings moved to when I sold my house. That was great. I loved that.
Satisfying.
3 days after that, I had divorce papers served to Matt at a motel he was staying at with his mom and dad. I've been happily divorced now for 3 years. That was delectable. I can't believe that. My God. What a horrible thing to do. Not you. No, what you did was great. Everyone is praising you in the comments, and I'm going to give you some praise too. That was fantastic, my dear. I'm like really confused about the fact that you sold your house so quick. Thank you for sharing, my dear. Let's all give her a round of applause. God, I love it when freeloaders get cut off. This, my dear, you get an A. Man, I was really hoping you had bought a plot of land and had the house picked up and physically moved there. That would have been satisfying. Imagine coming home from all the self-inflicted debacles of the vacation to find your house gone, just missing. Just that little extra mile. You know, you still got an A. That would have made it an A+.
We're gonna call her Amanda. She just found out recently that her baby daddy is her blood brother. We're gonna call her man Devin. Amanda and him actually met on social media. She was actually already receiving messages for him for over the course of 3 years, but she was in a relationship, so she would open up the messages, she would save them, but she would never respond. So she had this one homegirl who was always like, you know, having new dudes. So she asked her like, yo, where are you meeting all these guys? And she's like, girl, you gotta go through your Facebook inbox. So she's like, okay, bet, like let's do that together. So they're at work one day and they're going through her inbox and she's like saying no to pretty much every guy that's popping up in her inbox. Then she sees this one dude and she's like, oh my god, he actually looks really good, I want to talk to him. And he had sent her a message. So her and her friend come up with this message and she basically says like, oh, I see you have a picture of a friend of yours in your profile picture with you. My friend is interested in your friend, like, but I'm also interested in you. So she thought she was really smooth with that line. So he messages back immediately and he's like, oh, my friend passed away a few months ago, but I've been trying to talk to you for a long time. And she's like, what are you talking about? I only see one message in our Facebook inbox. And he's like, oh, check the other app. I'm not sure which other app, but he's like, check your other app. I've been talking to you there. And so she goes and checks, and sure enough, he's been sending her messages for over 3 years. So they start connecting, and she was like, oh my god, he looks like me. We click. We're really vibing. I feel like this is all like soulmate material. Shortly after they started dating, her baby daddy actually ended up going to prison. This was his, I believe, 3rd time. He had already been to prison twice before. And she held him down for the next 2 years. When he got out, they decided to take a little vacation. It's actually a pinned video on her profile. You can go see their vacation they took right when he got out. And that very weekend, she actually ended up becoming pregnant with the child that they have now, a beautiful baby daughter. Amanda admits that they did plan for this baby. It was something that they wanted. It was not like a spur of the moment decision. When he ended up getting arrested 2 weeks after she had confirmed that she is indeed pregnant, it kind of threw a wrench in the plans. So now she's stuck being a single parent, and people were kind of speculating that this might not be his baby. So she ends up doing like an early paternity test, right? While she's still pregnant with the baby, along with other tests. So when she does that test, it comes back that the baby is double kin to his father. And the doctor's like, are you and the father like related? And she's like, no, we're not. And he's like, are you sure? Because these results are showing that the baby is a double kin to his father. And so she's like, okay, cool. Mind you, Amanda was taking her appointments very seriously. She was going to every imaging, every screening, any testing, any extra ones that they were offering. She was going to all of them. Because her baby daddy was back in jail, she was doing all these appointments with her mother. So she's sitting there with her mother as the, doctor is giving her this news, and her mother is starting to act a little shady. And she's like, I'm gonna address this later. So they're leaving the appointment and she looks at her mom and she's like, why were you acting weird in there? Like, what's going on? And her mother, is kind of like evading the question at first. And then her mother goes, I never thought this was ever going to come up. Like, I never imagined in a million years that this conversation would ever come up. But I have to tell you the truth. You're actually adopted. Her mother goes on to explain that what actually happened was back in the day, her mom used to be a counselor and she would go to prisons and she would evaluate prisoners. She would say whether or not they needed care, and then she would go ahead and administer the care as well. Come to find out, Amanda's biological mother was incarcerated at the time that her mother that raised her was working at the prison. And so she was actually pregnant with Amanda at the time. And then when it came time for the baby to be born, there's a rule in prisons where they don't let the mothers have any intimacy, any type of like bonding with the baby. They take the baby right away and then they, give it either to a family member or they go to foster care. So Amanda was headed to foster care. Her mother had nobody on the outside. She was all on her own. Also, her biological mother did not know who her father was. So there really wasn't anybody for Amanda to be taken in by. And mind you, she already had 2 kids prior to this, right? And so at this point, the counselor, who is now Amanda's mother who raised her, steps in and she's like, I'll go ahead and adopt the baby. So there was no real paperwork. Her mother described it as like an angel being at the right place at the right time, and she ended up adopting Amanda. It was a closed adoption and she raised her like her own. So come to find out, her biological mother is her boyfriend's biological mother, and they are in fact blood related. They found out all of this after she was pregnant, after they've been together for years. And so they basically looked at each other, and after explaining to him as awkwardly as you can imagine it being over the jail phone, what was actually going on. And they kind of like processed everything. They decided like, well, we done already done the worst. We done had a child, we done been together. In her words, she said, we decided we're just gonna shove it in the back of our brain and we were gonna move on with our lives. And so here they are now. She shares the picture of her baby daughter, her family. She's like, my baby daughter was born healthy. She didn't have any, developmental issues, just a perfectly healthy baby, perfectly happy.
If you like gossip, if you like drama, this story's for you. Delina said I could use her real name, and she said all the other names in this story are real because she honestly doesn't give enough about their feelings. So hats off to her for that. Before I start, I have to say, sometimes I feel like the things that people are capable of is just as scary as the paranormal or the occult or whatever. So a couple springs ago, Delina's mom comes down with a terminal illness. Sadly, her parents lost everything while she was battling this illness, and Delina had always lived with her parents. After her parents lost everything, Delina and her kids had nowhere to go. The only person that reached out was this guy, Damien, who she'd been talking to on and off for 3 years. And Damien was super non-judgmental of her situation. He knew she needed a place to live. And he also told her he would benefit by having her and her kids move in and helping with his rent. Delina and her kids move in. About 2 months pass, and Delina and Damien start developing a romantic relationship, which was not part of the plan. But Delina was also going through some health issues at the time. Damien was really supportive, took care of her. And even though that wasn't part of the plan of them living together, they just kind of went with it. Damien also informs her during this time that he had just broken things off with his on again, off again girlfriend. Damien was very transparent with Delina, telling her that he had not cut ties with his ex, who was named Vanessa. He said that Vanessa was crazy, she was toxic, that they had a horrible relationship where they cheated on each other, and although she wasn't completely out of the picture, he wanted to move forward with Delina. Delina was down for it. She said that she appreciated Damien's honesty, and he had been transparent in the fact that him and Vanessa had still been hooking up even though their relationship was over. Delina had never met Vanessa. Up until that point, there was no evidence that Vanessa was still in the picture at all. She was never at the apartment. And Delina also noted that Vanessa was significantly older, about 12 years older, and that was a contributing factor on why her and Damien broke up. So her and Damien are getting along, things were going well, when one night she awakes to the sound of someone knocking at the front door. She calls Damien, Damien answers the door, and in barges Vanessa, and she starts screaming at Damien about, why would you move another woman into the apartment? I thought we were going to work things out. Delina is standing in the room while Vanessa is berating Damien, and she looks at her and she says, what does she have that I don't? Damien looks at Delina and he goes, are you okay with me giving her closure? And Delina basically says, yeah, do what you gotta do. Use this time to officially end it if you want to proceed with me. Delina goes back to her room, and him and Vanessa are talking in the living room. Vanessa ends up leaving. Damien tells Delina that it's over, he's dealt with it. But then it happens again, and it happens more and more, where Vanessa bangs on the door late at night. She's constantly coming in the apartment. They're arguing in the kitchen, and Damien's constantly telling Delina, like, let me just talk to her. Let me, like, end it for real. Delina's annoyed. She's like, why is this woman constantly coming over to the apartment? And it wasn't like Damien was leading her on. Like, she would hear their conversations where often Vanessa would like lie and over exaggerate certain aspects of their relationship. Like, she would be like, Damien, we were together for 3 years. And he would be like, no, we weren't. He would literally laugh in her face as she told him, like, how is he going to throw 3 years away? And he would be like, it was literally short of a year. Delina said the fact that Vanessa would constantly lie and gaslight Damien about aspects of their relationship really creeped her out and bothered her. And she got the feeling that Vanessa was one of those people that would constantly lie and be delusional to herself to make her feel better about a situation she didn't like. So during this time, while they're having all this closure, Delina takes a couple steps back and she tells Damien basically, I don't think we should move forward. Let's just be platonic while you're ending things with her. And then when it's finally over, we can move forward. Damien is understanding, he agrees, and they take a couple steps back, but eventually Vanessa stops coming around. She thinks that she finally got the hint, and her and Damien pick things back up. The last time Vanessa was over there, she was screaming at Damien about how he left her for his roommate, even though him and Vanessa were never together at the time when Delina moved in. But she accepts that her and Damien are no longer in a relationship, and she finally leaves. So Delina and Damien pick things up. They're going strong for about 6 months, and then Vanessa starts coming back in the picture and harassing them again. One night, Vanessa wakes up in the middle of the night. She sees headlights from outside of her bedroom window. She looks out and she sees Vanessa sitting in the car right below her bedroom window. Next morning, they come outside and find both of their windshields to their cars have been completely destroyed. Of course, they can't prove it's Vanessa, but obviously it was Vanessa. Another night, Delina's in bed. When she hears glass shattering, she looks at her bedroom window and realizes that the entire window has shattered because someone threw a rock at it. She looks out, there's no one there. Again, she's thinking it's Vanessa, but she can't prove it. Sometime after that, Delina's at the apartment with her kids. Damien was out at work. Delina's sitting watching TV with her kids when the front door busts down. Vanessa rushes in and starts attacking Delina while she's sitting on the couch in front of her small children. She said Vanessa was a lot bigger and older than she was, so she basically held her down. It was not a fair fight, but she knew Vanessa wasn't interested in a fair fight. While Vanessa is beating the crap out of Delina on the couch, Damien comes in. He basically drags her out of the apartment and they call the cops, but Vanessa leaves before the cops arrive. Delina's like, I'm not dealing with this. I have small kids. Like, I want a restraining order. The judge grants Damien, Delina, and her kids a restraining order against Vanessa, but she still shows up. Every time they call the police and Damien would explain to the police, this is my new girlfriend, talking about Delina. He'd be like, this is my ex-girlfriend, talking about Vanessa. I broke up with her. She will not leave us alone. Damien expressed multiple times to the police that he feels scared, he feels threatened, but Delina said that she thinks that the police didn't take him seriously because they didn't think that it was possible for a woman to make a man feel threatened. Delina said that the judge had even told her that this is a very psychotic and unstable person who is capable of very terrible things, which was why she granted the restraining order. One night, Delina's coming home from work when Damien calls her and he says, hey, Vanessa's in the driveway. You should call the cops. Be careful going home. So Delina calls the cops. She gets a call back from dispatch saying the issue has been resolved. Now, mind you, Delina's not even home yet. And she goes, what do you mean the issue's been resolved? Like, I'm not even home. And dispatch tells her, well, we just spoke to you and you said that it was fine. So that meant when the cops got there, Vanessa had lied, pretending to be Delina, and told her everything was fine and that the stalker had left. Delina said at this time in her life, she was constantly living in fear. It was like living it out of a horror film because she didn't sleep most nights because she was constantly anticipating what Vanessa would do. She said sometimes she would see her peeking in through the windows. She would see her parked down at the end of their apartment complex. But a lot of times she would park just out of the footage granted by the restraining order, so there was nothing the police could do. During this time, Vanessa is going around to all of Damien and Delina's friends and telling them basically that Delina was the other woman and that Damien had cheated on her and ended the relationship. One day, Delina's neighbor Carrie calls her and tells her that she ran into Vanessa at a local burger joint. Delina and Carrie were friends, and Carrie had never met Vanessa, but Vanessa, seeing Carrie at the burger joint, approaches her and says, hey, how are you? I'm your neighbor. I live with Damien. And Carrie's like, I've never met you. Delina lives there. She said Vanessa kind of just smiled awkwardly and walked off. Carrie then tells Delina, like, I know you've told me about the things that she's done, but like, I didn't realize how unstable this woman is. Carrie would often take Delina's kids to school for her, and one day she calls her around 6 in the morning and she says, hey, Vanessa's sitting outside the apartment complex. Delina didn't leave the apartment that day until about 7 p.m. When she was going out, she saw Vanessa's car, which means that Vanessa had been sitting out there for 9 hours just watching the apartment. And again, she was parked just outside of the footage of the restraining order, so she couldn't get in trouble. Delina and Damien constantly felt watched by Vanessa, but there was really nothing else that could be done. And then Delina finds out she's pregnant. Very excited about the baby, but Vanessa doesn't leave him alone. Instead, she actually starts posting videos of her and Damien together from when they were together, but she's trying to make it seem like Damien is actively cheating on Delina with Vanessa. She posted photos from a trip that they took, but she was posting about it as if it were happening then. She would post screenshots of text messages from Damien from when they were together of him professing his love for her. She continued to stalk them and post these crazy things until Delina was 6 months pregnant when they decided that they were going to get married and they were going to leave the city. Delina started receiving text messages from strange numbers, making fun of her faith, that she was a Christian. She said text messages would say things like, God can't protect you, Satan knows what's his. Satan is coming for your baby. And she said basically she thinks that Delina was actively practicing witchcraft against Delina and Damien and their baby. Delina says their daughter was born, she's happy, she's healthy, and they're living a good life. But to this day, Vanessa continues to post screenshots of her and Damien, of his text messages, and her entire social media presence is all about Delina and Damien. She even went so far as to post a photo of herself wearing Damien's old clothes with their daughter's name as the caption. Delina said Vanessa hasn't found them, she doesn't know where they live, but she doesn't know if she'll ever really let it go.
Would I be the asshole to divorce my wife after she said she wanted to send our son to a conversion camp? So this is a pretty heavy situation, and I'm really confused and disgusted, not gonna lie, because I've never thought my wife was like this. My wife, 44 female, and I, 45 male, have been married for 14 years. We have 2 kids, a 16-year-old son, let's call him Noah, and a 12-year-old daughter. We've had our fair share of disagreements over the years, of course, but things have been generally smooth between us. Now for the context, Noah came out as gay about a year ago. It was a surprise, and as hard as it was to accept, I love my kids more than anything and I just want their happiness. My wife visibly didn't take it well though. She was upset and she seemed to go through a grieving period where she didn't really talk about it. I tried to support Noah in every way I could, telling him that I loved him no matter what, etc. My wife though, I could tell she wasn't on the same page. She would say things like, "This is just a phase," or "he needs help." But I brushed it off as her needing time. Fast forward to last week, we were having a conversation about Noah's future. Out of nowhere, my wife casually mentions that she's been looking into conversion therapy camps and thinks it might be the right solution. She says that Noah isn't really gay and that he just hasn't been shown the right path and that this could fix him. My blood ran cold, obviously. I was in shock. I immediately told her I didn't agree and that it was not something I could support. She got upset and said that I was enabling Noah's confusion and that if I really cared about him, I would help him get better. What the fuck is wrong with her? She was persistent, and no matter how much I tried to explain that conversion therapy is harmful, like I know those kids get abused and often end up either traumatized or ending themselves, and that I would never send our son to something like that. She wouldn't back down. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't even think I love her anymore. The fact that she could be so heartless disgusts me. I know being gay is not easy, and people like her just make it even harder. I'm considering staying, only for our daughter's sake, but would it be okay if it means hurting my son? It feels like a betrayal to Noah. I just don't think I can keep living with someone who thinks this is okay. Not the asshole, 100%. Noah is not broken. There's nothing to fix. Those conversion camps are hell on earth, and any parent who wants to send their child to one doesn't deserve to be a parent. Make sure you include it in the conditions of custody that it is absolutely not permitted. Depending on where you're located, it might even be grounds to go full custody. Buckle up, OP. Your fight for your children's rights and well-being is just beginning. And then update. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone here for all the help and advice I've gotten under my post and in DMs. Sorry if I couldn't answer to everyone. It's just been too many people. So I posted something about my wife wanting me to send my son to conversion camp 2 days ago. First of all, some people told me to show her videos and documentaries about what happens there, but this argument has been ongoing for more than a week now. I've showed her things and she won't budge. Really bad update, if I can be honest, so let's get into it. All of you told me to try to get him out ASAP. Y'all were definitely right. So yesterday I took the day off and I went to see an attorney just to get some info about divorce, etc. But after what happened, I'm 100% sure I want a divorce as soon as possible. Yesterday, I went to pick up Noah at his school, and as many of you suggested, we had a long discussion. I basically told him his mom and I may be getting a divorce because she wants to send him to a conversion camp, but I can't accept that. I've talked with her many times, and I told him I'll probably go through with it. He looked really hurt. My heart broke all over again, but was very understanding and thanked me for standing up for him. I pulled him into a tight hug and I told him I'll always love him no matter what and that nothing is his fault. At that moment, he started crying because he was so glad at least I was on his side, and I'm very pissed. So sorry if I don't make sense, but apparently his mom has been pressuring him for months. She planned dates with girls to try and fix him. He had to lie by saying he was going at a friend's instead. She was saying he needs help, and as much as she loves him, he needs to get his condition cured. I feel so bad because I've been oblivious to all of that, and I failed to protect him for all that time. How do you make your 16-year-old son go through that? So when we got home yesterday, I can't lie, I was furious and I confronted her right then and there. At first, she was trying to explain she was doing it for him, but her speech quickly turned to slurs, and it was clear that she was just ashamed of having a gay son. In the end, I told her I went to see an attorney, and that learning all of that just confirmed I wanted a divorce. She got angry and called me a delusional disgrace. We argued a lot, and at some point, Noah tried to separate us, but my wife punched him multiple times. She was saying disgusting things like that he is a dirty F word, and that it's all his fault we're getting divorced because his filth corrupted me. My daughter, who was probably in her room, came to see what all the commotion was about and was rightfully horrified and quickly called 911 when I told her to. Long story short, the cops got there and took her away. She was reluctant to go because she was not in the wrong and they needed to let her go. I explained everything to my daughter and she doesn't want anything to do with her mom anymore. Right now I'm in the hospital because my soon-to-be ex-wife broke my rib while I was restraining her. I should have probably went as soon as the cops took her, but I don't care. My son was crying with a black eye and a split lip. They're checking for any concussions, and obviously the only thing I cared about was to comfort him because I can't even imagine what it feels like to be beaten by your mom for being gay. I'm planning to file for custody, of course, and my kids don't want to see her ever again. Given all the charges she's facing, I hope she won't stand a chance against me. I just sent mail to my attorney and I hope the procedure will be fast. I've also thought of getting CPS involved, but I'm not sure they will really help. Like, I cannot understand how you can have grown so resentful of your own kid because of something they can't control. Even I had pretty strong opinions about it, but as a father, it is my role to unconditionally love my kids, and so I learned about the topic and I changed my way of seeing the world for him. It took some time grasping it, but I never doubted 1 second the love that I have for my child. I thought it was the same for my wife. Visibly not.